Hello, my name is Chad Hart. I'm an extension economist with Iowa State University. And today I'd like to give you a brief update on what we're seeing within the crop markets as we look out there. Now, in here in May, USDA releases their first sort of official estimates of what we see with the new crop that we're planting right now. And we got those estimates last week. And so as you look at the table here for US corn, what we see is that USDA, in this case, they usually do this, they stick with the acreage that we got from the March planting intentions report and their trend line yields. So as we look at corn, 90 million acres of corn that looks to be planted out there, trend line yield of 181 bushels per acre. That leads to an estimated crop of 14.86 billion bushels as we look forward for 2024. Now, it's really on the demand side of the market where I was most interested in seeing how USDA would approach the numbers here in May. And what we found for corn is that they showed a little more usage building up over the past couple of months. They ended up increasing both ethanol and exports by 50 million bushels each, not only for the 2023 crop, but also as we look forward to 2024. And what that did is that helped tighten up the ending stock story a little bit. We still see some growth in ending stocks, but it's not nearly as severe as was first feared here. And as you look there, going across the 2024 demand side there in the end of the gray box, we see that they're looking at feed and residual demand of 5.75 billion bushels, ethanol at 5.45 billion bushels now, food seed and other taking up another 1.4 billion bushels, and then exports at 2.2 billion. So when we add it all up, we're looking at basically 14.8 billion bushels worth of usage out there. So it's only about, 55, 60 million bushels below what we're seeing for expected production. So that's helping close that gap between what we're seeing for ending stocks at the end of 2023 and ending stocks for 2024. But despite that, reduction of the pressure on ending stocks, USDA held their season average price estimate as we look out to 2024 of $4.40 a bushel, which is roughly a quarter below what we're experiencing right now with the 2023 crop, and it's well below what we've been seeing for the past couple of years. So USDA's estimates still show that we have some issues out there in terms of production being greater than what we're seeing usage right now, but we are seeing that usage picking up here a little bit as we look over time. Now, as we look at the soybean market, what we found there was that again, USDA stuck with their acreage estimate of 86.5 million acres from the March report, trendline yield of 52. So we're looking at 4.45 billion bushels worth of production here in 2024. Now, while on the corn side, they were showing positive changes when we look at usage across the board. Here on soybeans, it was mixed. They ended up adding a little bit to the domestic crush demand, but they ended up also pulling back some, and in this case, pulling back by 50 million bushels as we look at export demand. And so here's a case where instead of tightening up that ending stock balance as we look towards the 2024 crop, here it did actually get a little bit worse in terms of continued building of ending stocks as we look out there. As you can see, they're projecting total use right now of 4.36 billion bushels of soybeans. So that's adding another 100 million bushels to ending stocks as we look there. But despite that adding of stocks over time, they did keep their season average price for 2024 at $11.20 a bushel. Now, in terms of the things that are sort of pushing the market around right now, the idea is that that report worked through the market fairly quickly last week, and realistically, the market's been now concentrating more on how is planting going as we look across the nation. When we look at corn plantings, it's been around, if you will, the 5-year average in terms of our planting progress, and we went from slightly ahead of that planting pace a couple of weeks ago now, since we've gotten rain specifically over the three ice states more consistently here lately. We have seen that planting progress slow down, but we're still within range of the 5-year average as we look for corn. And we look to see some pickup here as we do have a few dry days here as we head towards the middle of May before we expect to see more rains moving in to slow things down again towards the end of May. When we're looking at the soybean side, it's the case of we were keeping up with last year's planting pace till this last week and a half. Now we've fallen back down towards the 5-year average, but again, we have some time still to get these crops in as we sit here in the middle of May. So the markets have reacted by adding a little bit of a price premium in there, weather premium building into the market right now, as we have seen, a little bit of a slowdown here, and there is some trepidation as we look out there in terms of if we continue to see the wet pattern that we've had over the past couple of weeks play out for the rest of May, will that start to really bog down planting here on the tail end of the 2024 planting season? When we look at the export side, as I mentioned, when USDA was looking at the crop this coming year, they showed two different tales here. We see a slowdown on the soybean side and some growth on the corn side, and that's basically building off of what we're already seeing in terms of our sales for the 2023 crop. So we look at soybean export sales, they have been down roughly about 300 million bushels compared to last year. The vast majority of those losses have been in the Chinese market. Once we remove the Chinese market, when we look at all the other markets, we're about where we were last year. But yeah, we are definitely having some issues getting soybeans sold into the Chinese market. And as we see the trade relationship between the US and China struggle, especially as we look at the possibility of more tariffs across the board, that could lead to an even larger reduction as we look in terms of soybean sales into that vital market there. When we're looking at the corn market, while we still see that slowdown in China like we see with soybeans, here we have other markets that are large enough to offset those losses. And so we have seen actually growth in corn export sales up 27% year over year right now. And like I say, USDA used that to add on not only 50 million bushels here for the 2023 crop, but another 50 million on the 2024 crop as well. So they're showing definitely some strength there that we hope continues as we look forward over the next 18 months. When we're looking at pricing right now, the idea is that what we are seeing is that for old crop, yeah, things have sort of settled in, and it looks like that season average price will be $4.65 a bushel. Futures market and USDA sort of agree on that right now. Where we do see some disagreement is looking out there for the 2024 crop. USDA's number right now is at $4.40 a bushel. Futures markets trading more in the 475 to 480 range. So you can see that 40 cent difference. A lot of that I would chalk up to the weather premium that we're building into this market, along with I think that the futures market has reflected more of that demand strength through ethanol and exports, a little quicker than what USDA had. Also, as we look out towards the 2025 crop, you'll notice that right now the futures market is sort of stabilizing in that $4.80 range, putting this where we are looking at both 2024 and 2025 being years where prices are around break even, but maybe a little bit to the plus side. As I look at production cost estimates for the 2024 crop, for here in central Iowa, we're looking at an average cost of about $4.60 a bushel. So at 480, we've got 15-20 cents of profit in there. And it looks like the markets are sort of saying we might maintain that as we look out towards the 2025 crop. Now for soybeans, we're looking at some very, let's call it the season average price, pretty strong still for the 2023 crop, but where we see that drop is really looking forward here for the 2024 crop. And again, it's the case that the market is showing a little bit better price than what USDA lists. USDA is 11.20. The market right now is 11.70. And again, I think a lot of that is the weather premium, the slowdown in planting and being reflected in prices again. I think also here too, we could be seeing in the soybean futures a little bit of building in of that expected demand, especially through crush, for renewable diesel that's helped support this market over the past year and a half. But as we look all the way out to 2025, again, we seem to be sort of stabilizing as we look out there. But the problem with soybeans is it's stabilizing at a little bit lower level out there. We continue to see prices look to maybe move a little more down as we look into 2025 with a season average price estimate right now based on the market of $11.56. Again, around break even, but actually a little bit to the plus side. When we look at production cost here in the state of Iowa, looking at 11.25 per bushel for soybeans. So again, soybeans and corn both showing a little bit of profitability here for the 24 and 2025 crops, which should help, if you will, stabilize farm incomes as we look out there. But there's also still a lot of volatility left in the market as we look ahead. So with that, it's a really quick summary of what we're seeing within the markets as we look out there. Again, my name is Chad Hart. I am a extension economist with Iowa State University. And I want to thank you for watching this video, and hopefully you'll be tuning in next month as we give another update as we look out there. And as we look into June, not only will we get an updated snapshot of the global situation in terms of supply and demand, but at the end of June, we'll get the acreage report, which will help firm up those acreage numbers as we look out there for both corn and soybeans. In fact, one of the things that the market has been trying to figure out since the March prospective plantings report was where some acres that sort of fell out of production over the past year, where have they ended up? As we're looking at about 6 million acres that's still in question right now as we move through the spring here of 2024. So we'll get, like I say, a snapshot on that as we move forward in the next month into June. So with that, again, my name is Chad Hart. Thank you for your time.